What is happening, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Naked and Afraid. Just kidding, this is not Naked and Afraid. This is Raw and Uncut. And if you're unfamiliar with what Raw and Uncut is, it is a series that I do here on the channel where I basically hit record on the camera and I give you my raw feedback, thoughts, perspective. That's it, maybe my raw perspective on certain topics, maybe trending topics, hot topics, controversial topics. But this particular week, and the reason why I call it Uncut is because I literally hit record and I do not edit this video whatsoever. So you're getting kind of like a podcast style raw take on something without a bunch of editing that goes into some YouTube videos. So Raw and Uncut, and this particular topic of this video is going to be talking about knockoffs, all right? Knockoff lures. It's pretty prevalent in the bass fishing industry. It happens a lot, probably even happens more than you even recognize or realize. I think you have to have a pretty keen eye and have to really know a lot about not only the fishing industry, but I guess more about all the different manufacturers that are out there, all the places that make baits and lures, how they're made, where they come from, which factories they come from, the designs. I mean, you got to be pretty in tune. You got to be able to get and experience a lot of different lures to figure out which ones are originals versus knockoffs. But the reason why this topic came up is because recently in a Monster Bass box, all right, so shout out to Monster Bass box. They are a sponsor of the channel, and Fishing Lone Star have been for a while. But in the Monster Bass box, back in August, there was a particular lure that came in the box, all right, and it was this one here from Thunderhawk, and it is called the Grenade. All right, it's this kind of like it's a soft plastic, but their version is super stretchy. And as I was posting about this, I got a lot of feedback about how cool it was, how cool this little lure is, but I also got a lot of feedback about how much people thought it was a knockoff of Gi Crack and the bellows gill that Gi Crack makes. All right, so I want to talk about this particular lure and is it a knockoff or not, and then I want to talk about lures in general in the bass fishing industry, which ones might be knockoffs, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing, etc. So let's dive in. I'm really just going to touch on those 2 points, and then I want to hear your comments and feedback below. So again, this is the Grenade. It's a 3.75 inch. There's also a 2.75 inch made from Thunderhawk lures. All right. So the first topic, is this a knockoff of the Gi Crack bellows gill? All right. First of all, let me back up. The Gi Crack bellows gill came out several years ago. All right. In 2022, in the beginning of 2022, Thunderhawk came out with this one. So after Gi Crack released theirs. And literally there's a video around the beginning of 2022 where literally one of the founders of this bait at Thunderhawk came out and said, look, like we took the Gi Crack bellows gill and in their opinion made it better. So what did they do? They added more plastic up here in the head. All right, so I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's more plastic, the thickness up here. They added these eyes, which you may or may not like. They added a new tail, all right? So the tail is different than what Gi Crack offers, all right? So the head is different, the tail is different. And then one of the biggest differences, Gi Crack, theirs is not stretchable plastic, all right? You'll see, I'm stretching this one. I learned from a previous video not to grab this portion of the tail, so I'm gonna grab the body. You can see I'm stretching it. It is made from a super stretchy material, very similar to Elastec plastic like Z-Man, all right? Now, some would say that's a better way to make a lure or soft plastic. Some would say it's not a better way to make one. The interesting part about that is that was in 2022, all right? Follow the timeline. 2022 when Thunderhawk came out with this lure. Fast forward, all right, to ICAST this year, 2023. Guess what Gi Crack then came out with? I'll go ahead and jump to it since you can't give me feedback right now. Gi Crack came out with their version of their own bellows gill, but they changed the plastic formulations. They now have 2 formulations. The next plastic, I believe, is called their SFA material, but is basically, they said, hey, we're gonna go back and now make ours stretchy as well. So, who knocked off who? Well, again, I told you Thunderhawk in the beginning of 2022, they literally came out and said, hey, yeah, this has been done before. We're taking what Geekcrack did and we're adding it better. We're making a reinforced head, a better tail, and super stretchy plastic so you can catch more fish out of it. Along with that, they have some pretty unique colors, all right? Check out this one. This is kind of like a morning dawn color. The actual color name from Thunderhawk is called Clear Purple, but it's a pretty unique one. And they also have this plum color, all right? So I picked up plum, I picked up this kind of purple color, and then I picked up more of kind of like a bluegill, darker on one side, lighter on one side. Those are the three that I went and picked up after I got it in my Monster Bass box. So there's different colors, different material, reinforced head, and a different tail. Now, you tell me, does that mean that this is a knockoff? Maybe. I mean, it's certainly, I mean, there's no doubt about it. They even admit that they made this similar to what Geekcrack Bellows Gill already had done. But to me, a knockoff is when someone makes something that's a cheaper version and doesn't work as well. And I would argue that this works just the same. In some cases, maybe even better because of this stretchy material. The interesting thing about that is I have to pose this question. It's a hypothetical question, but would Geekcrack have ever come out with their Bellows Gill and the stretchy material had Thunderhawk not done it first? Now, granted, Thunderhawk didn't make this. They just, in their opinion, made it better. But in my opinion, I actually think that coming out with a different version or more colors or a different material or enhancing the head or the tail or whatever it may be on any particular lure is actually good for competition because it makes someone come back and continue to advance, progress, and make their bait better. I'm not sure if Geekcrack would have ever come back and made a stretchy material in their Bellows Gill had Thunderhawk not done it first. Thunderhawk saw an opportunity, they saw a need, they created a mold that was very much like Geekcrack's. They enhanced it in their opinion. Look at how much that tail moves. That's pretty awesome. So they enhanced it in their opinion and they made their version. If you want to call it a knockoff, call it a knockoff. I don't necessarily think that this is a cheaper version. I don't think it's a lesser quality version. I think it's a different version. Therefore, I don't believe it falls into the category of knockoff. All right. Now, I'll pause here. Let me set this down. Since a lot of people were calling this a knockoff, I politely challenged every single one of them. And my challenge was, okay, so if you're calling this a knockoff of Geekcrack, which by the way, I don't have any affiliation with Thunderhawk. I have no affiliation with Geekcrack. Right? I don't really have an affiliation with either one of them. So it doesn't matter to me what, quite honestly, you think about these. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. Leave me a comment, let me know. But my point is, if you're going to call this a knockoff, but you use any kind of swim bait, you use any kind of crankbait, you use any kind of plastic worm, you use any kind of Senko, I could go on. You use any kind of rod, reel, line, etc. All of those are not the original version, likely. I highly doubt you are using the very first original version of whatever anyone came out with, right? You're probably not. And so knockoff to me is when something is made super cheap, less quality, and it's truly a knockoff version. You have your regular version, and then you have a lesser, cheaper, not only cheap, but the quality, the components, the way the bait works or the action of it is much less. It's just a lesser quality. That to me is a knockoff. And in some cases, there's plenty of those in the fishing industry. There are many baits that come out, or lures that come out of China, all right? And they come off of the same assembly line. Someone just repackages it, relabels it, and calls it something different, but it's literally the exact same lure. There's been times I've held up the exact same lure side by side from manufacturer A and from manufacturer B, or from brand A and brand B, and they're the exact same lures. In fact, many times it's the exact same package. They just change, obviously, their brand on it. This package may be red, this one may be white, but it's literally the same packaging, the same lure, the same skirt material, the same hook, the same wire, the same everything, right? So in that particular case, that is a knockoff. Hands down, that's a knockoff. But I mean, look, like how many crankbaits are on the market? I was gonna say dozens. It's I would say well over 100 different versions of a crankbait. Does that mean every single one of them is a knockoff? No. Some of them are slightly different. They run a little bit different. The bills may be made of something different. The body shape is slightly different. You know, some have a higher pitch rattle, a lower pitch rattle. Some are made silent. Some have better hooks than others. Some have swivel hook hangers versus others that don't. So I wouldn't say they're all knockoffs, but certainly in the crankbait category, there's absolutely some knockoffs. Now, I'm not here to point fingers, name names, call anybody out. You guys can do that on your own. You probably know the ones that are out there. But also, like, if one company already has something and another company makes it but puts their twist on it, maybe there's people out there that just want to fish this company's lures versus this company's lures. I know for me, there's plenty of companies out there that I prefer not to use their stuff because I don't really want to support the person that owns the company because I may not necessarily think they're a great person. There's other companies out there that I think someone is actually a great person. I think they make great stuff and I want to support them more even though they're a smaller brand or maybe even they're a bigger brand. I think the bigger brand makes a better component. Point being, there's some people out there that they want to have a crankbait and a lipless and a worm and a swim bait and a frog and a whatever, all from the same company. And other people don't mind using different stuff. So all these companies are trying to create their own robust lineup of rods, reels, line, hooks, terminal tackle, soft plastics, hard plastics, etc., all in their category or all in their brand. And that's fine as long as it's just not actually stealing somebody's intellectual property and not getting credit for it. All right, so I will actually call out and I'll wrap up with this. There was one company out there that used someone else's technology when they first came out with their baits, and it was Guggen Baits. Guggen Baits, when they first came out with their Bandito bug, they used the same patented technology in the flange, right, of the crawl that Rage already had, Rage Tail with Strike King. Now, if you looked at the packaging though, Guggen Baits actually called out that they were using patent number so-and-so and so-and-so, which was owned by Rage Tail, right? So they actually called out that in the beginning, the Bandito bug, the Kraken crawl, that they were using the same design, the same patent that was already featured in Rage and the Rage Tail products. However, Guggen later came out with their own mold and their own patent and therefore moved away from Rage and started using their own. But in the beginning, I mean, they even called out on their packaging. So I don't necessarily think in that particular case it's a knockoff. It was different enough. But where it was similar, they called it out. I think legally they probably had to on their packaging. But some people will call that a knockoff. Some people wouldn't. Some people only want to fish Strike King. Some people only want to fish Guggen Baits. Some people fish both. All right. So that's kind of my take on knockoffs. Just because I encountered it a lot with these here from Thunderhawk in my recent post, I actually thought Monster Bass did a great job of bringing something pretty unique to the box. In the grenade, I love this little bait here. I'm going to use it as a jig trailer. I'm going to throw it on a shaky head. I'll probably rig it on a drop shot. I think this is pretty darn sweet. I don't necessarily think it's a knockoff. I do think Thunderhawk calls out the fact that they mimicked or copied, if you will, what the Bellows Gill had done, but just added their improvements to it, changed up the plastic formation, which the ironic part of that again is that Geekrack later then did the exact same thing with their plastic. So I guess long story short, I actually think the competitiveness of creating a slightly different spin on a particular lure only creates more innovation and more drive from one manufacturer to another to keep up with each other. And in that particular case, they make better and better and better lures, which only me and you can only benefit from. So in that regard, I kind of like the competitiveness between these different companies and them trying to make different lures or improve upon someone else's lure to make it better. I think that competitive edge drives innovation for us as the angler, and for that, I'm all for it. So that's gonna wrap up this edition of Raw and Uncut. Let me know what you think. If you got other topics you want me to speak on for Raw and Uncut, I'm going to get back to getting back to that series. I'm going to link all the previous Raw and Uncut videos and a playlist here on the channel so you can check it out below. If you've not yet, I would love to see you subscribe to the channel. Please give this video a like, and again, comment. Let me know what you think about knockoffs or other Raw and Uncut topics. And until next time, if nobody's told you that, God loves you, and so do I. Peace out.